The silent partner. The morning light spilled through the bay window of my living room, catching the dust motes dancing above the hardwood floor I'd sanded and stained myself 30 years ago. I sat in my old armchair, the one my wife, Ellen, had loved, clutching a mug of black coffee that had gone cold. In my other hand was a document my daughter, Naomi, had handed me last night. It wasn't a letter or a grocery list. It was a business agreement, typed in crisp font, outlining my role in the family startup she and her husband, Victor, ran out of my garage. The words burned into my mind: 6:30 a.m. prepare coffee and breakfast for staff, Naomi and Victor. 8 a.m. clean garage workspace. 9 a.m. run errands for business supplies. 10 a.m. prepare lunch for family and staff. The list went on, hour by hour, until 9 p.m. organize inventory and prep for next day's orders. Dad, starting tomorrow, this is how we keep things running smoothly, Naomi had said, her voice calm but firm, like she was briefing a new hire. Victor stood beside her, scrolling through his phone, nodding without looking up. We're building something big, and this house is part of it. If you can't handle these responsibilities, we'll need to rethink our arrangement. Rethink our arrangement? I'd asked, my voice low, still gripping the paper like it might bite me. Victor had glanced up, his eyes sharp. Joseph, we've been here 3 years, keeping this place functional. Legally, we've got rights. If you don't want to be part of the team, you can leave. We'd rather not go there, but we need someone who contributes to the business and the household. My hands shook now, just as they had last night, as I reread the document. At 68, in the suburban home I'd bought with Ellen after decades of teaching history at the local high school, I was being handed a work schedule by my own daughter. The same daughter I'd raised alone after Ellen passed when Naomi was 10. The same daughter whose science fairs I'd attended, whose college applications I'd proofread, whose wedding I'd paid for with my savings. Now, she and Victor were treating me like an unpaid intern who also covered the bills. Dad, it's not personal, Naomi had added, her tone softened but calculated. This is for the family and the business. You want to be part of the kids' lives, don't you? At your age, with your pension, where else are you going to go? A rented room? A senior home? Here, you've got a roof, food, and your grandkids. It's a win-win. A win-win. My home, my refuge, reduced to a bargaining chip. I looked around the living room, at the bookshelves I'd built, now cluttered with Victor's tech gadgets and Naomi's business files. The walls, once hung with Ellen's watercolors, were covered in posters for their startup, a meal kit delivery service called Fresh Feast. My coffee table, where I used to grade papers, was buried under stacks of packing materials. The garage, my old workshop where I'd restored antique clocks, was now their headquarters, filled with boxes and a noisy printer. Grandpa, can you make eggs? Sophie's voice pulled me from my thoughts. My 10-year-old granddaughter stood in the doorway, her tablet glowing in her hands. She didn't look up, just tapped at the screen, expecting me to hop to it. In a minute, sweetheart, I said, my voice automatic, honed by 3 years of meeting their demands. Naomi appeared behind Sophie, her laptop under her arm. Dad, make sure the eggs are organic. Sophie's on a new diet. Oh, and we need you to pick up Noah from karate at 4. I've got a pitch meeting, and Victor's handling inventory. She didn't wait for a reply, just headed to the garage, leaving a trail of her jasmine perfume. I stood frozen in my own kitchen, the agreement crumpled in my fist. This was my life now, a list of tasks, a drain on my $900 a month pension, a constant stream of orders. I'd been thrilled when Naomi and Victor moved in 3 years ago, after their first business venture tanked. Just a few months, Dad, Naomi had said, her eyes teary. We'll get back on our feet. You're our rock. I'd opened my home, cooked their meals, watched Sophie and Noah, paid for groceries when their budget fell short. But somewhere along the way, my generosity became their entitlement. Grandpa, the eggs. Sophie called again, her tone sharper, mirroring her mother's impatience. I walked to the fridge, my legs heavy, and found it nearly bare. A carton of organic eggs Naomi had labeled for staff only, a half-empty jar of mustard, a bag of wilting spinach. The pantry was no better, a box of Naomi's gluten-free cereal, a can of expired soup, a bag of rice I'd bought on clearance. I'd spent $250 at the store last week, mostly on Sophie's snacks and Victor's protein shakes. My pension was so stretched I'd skipped my arthritis medication to afford their necessities. Dad, we're out of almond milk. Naomi shouted from the garage. Can you grab some today? Oh, and we need more packing tape and labels for the business. I left a list on the counter. Should be about $120. $120. Another slice of my pension, gone. I stared at the list taped to the counter, written in Victor's blocky handwriting: almond milk, organic kale, gluten-free flour, packing tape, thermal labels, karate uniforms for Noah. No please, no thank you, no offer to pitch in. Just expectations, as if my money was theirs by right. Naomi, my pension can't cover this every week, I said, stepping into the garage, my voice trembling but firm. She looked up from her laptop, her eyes narrowing. Dad, we're all making sacrifices. Victor's working 16-hour days on the business, and I'm juggling client calls. You live here, eat our food. It's only fair you chip in. Live here? In my own house? The house I'd bought with Ellen, where we'd raised Naomi, where I'd mourned her mother's death. The house I'd maintained for decades, paying taxes, fixing the roof, rebuilding the garage after a storm. I felt like I'd been punched, but Naomi was already back at her screen, dismissing me. Back in the kitchen, I tried to focus on the eggs, but my hands shook as I cracked them into a pan. Sophie sat at the counter, still glued to her tablet, oblivious to the storm inside me. Grandpa, hurry up. I'm hungry, she said, her tone echoing her mother's. I looked at her, my sweet Sophie, who used to draw me pictures of clocks. Now, she saw me as the guy who cooked, drove, cleaned. Not Grandpa, not Joseph, just the help. Coming, love, I said, forcing a smile, but inside, something was cracking. That night, Victor came home late, his jacket slung over his shoulder, a takeout coffee in hand. He dropped onto my couch, the one I'd bought for Ellen's 50th birthday, and opened a beer from my fridge. Joseph, we need to talk about the business budget, he said, not looking at me. Naomi and I are scaling up Fresh Feast, so we need you to cover more expenses, utilities, internet, maybe the kids' karate fees. Your pension can handle it. My pension's barely enough for me, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. I'm already paying for groceries, taxes, and half your business supplies. When are you two going to start contributing? He looked up, his eyes cold. Contributing? Joseph, we're keeping this house alive. You think you could manage this place alone? The yard, the repairs, the kids? We're doing you a favor by being here. Without us, this house would be a money pit. A money pit. My home, where I taught Naomi to ride a bike, where I'd sat up nights grading papers, where I dreamed of a quiet retirement. I felt the words choke me. Victor, this is my house. I've paid for it, maintained it, loved it for decades. You're here because I let you. Naomi appeared from the garage, her arms crossed, her face tight with indignation. Dad, let's not get dramatic. We've been here 3 years, keeping this place running. Legally, we have tenant rights. If you don't want to work with us, we can take this to court. But at your age, do you want that hassle? Or to end up in a cramped apartment, alone, with no family? The threat landed like a brick. My own daughter, in my own living room, was blackmailing me. Either I became their servant, funding their business with my money, or they tried to take my home. I looked at Naomi, searching for the girl who used to beg for history stories, who'd promised to make me proud. That girl was gone, replaced by a woman who saw me as a means to an end. Think about it, Dad, Victor said, taking a swig of his beer. You're lucky to have us. Most guys your age are in nursing homes. You get to stay here, see Sophie and Noah every day. All we're asking is you step up. Step up, I repeated, the words bitter. You mean work all day and pay for everything while you build your empire with my money? Naomi rolled her eyes. Dad, you're being selfish. We're a family. Families share responsibilities. You don't work, just collect your pension. We're the ones with real jobs, real stress. You should be grateful we're including you. Grateful. For being treated like an employee in my own home. For having my life dictated by their agreement. For watching my savings shrink while they plan their future. I looked around the living room, at my furniture, now scuffed from the kids' roughhousing. Ellen's watercolors, boxed in the attic to make room for their posters. My workshop, now their office, filled with their clutter. This wasn't my home anymore. It was their headquarters, and I was just the janitor. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, the bed where Ellen and I had dreamed of our future, where I'd grieved her loss, and stared at the ceiling. When had I become invisible? When had my kindness become weakness? When had my love for my family become a license to exploit me? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, the bed where Ellen and I had dreamed of our future, where I'd grieved her loss, and stared at the ceiling. When had I become invisible? When had my kindness become weakness? When had my love for my family become a license to exploit me? I remembered the day Naomi and Victor arrived, 3 years ago. Their first business, a food truck, had failed, and they'd lost their apartment. "Dad, you're our lifeline," Naomi had said, hugging me tightly. "We'll be out in a few months, I swear." I'd believed her. I'd cooked their meals, babysat Sophie and Noah, paid for their gas when their savings ran dry. I'd thought I was helping my family. But every favor became an expectation. Every dollar I spent became their right. Every no problem I said became a contract I hadn't meant to sign. At 3 a.m., I heard noises in the kitchen. I crept downstairs and found Victor eating cereal straight from the box, leaving crumbs on the counter I'd cleaned. "Victor, what are you doing?" I whispered, not wanting to wake the kids. "Just hungry," he said, not looking up. "We're out of milk. Can you grab some tomorrow?" "Victor, I can't keep buying everything," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm running out of money." He sighed, like I was a nuisance. "Joseph, relax. We'll pay you back when the business takes off. Just put it on your card." The business. Always the business. Their dream, funded by my pension. I cleaned up the crumbs in silence, realizing this was my life. Cleaning their messes while they slept in my home, dreaming of their success. The next morning, I followed the agreement because I didn't know what else to do. I made organic eggs for Sophie, drove Noah to school, and cleaned the garage while Naomi prepared for a client call in my dining room, using my electricity, my Wi-Fi, my space. But as I swept their workspace, something shifted. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was a realization that I couldn't keep living like this. I wasn't just losing my home, I was losing myself. That afternoon, while the kids were at school and Victor was out, I called my old friend, Tom, a retired math teacher who'd always been a voice of reason. "Tom, can you come over?" I asked, my voice cracking. "I need to talk." He was at my door in 20 minutes, his white beard neatly trimmed, his eyes sharp with concern. "Joseph, you look like hell. What's going on?" We sat at the kitchen table, the agreement still taped to the fridge like a sentence. I told him everything, the schedule, the threats, the way my pension was disappearing, the way my home felt like a warehouse. I showed him the crumpled paper, my hands shaking as I pointed to each task. Tom listened, his face darkening. "Joseph, this is abuse," he said when I finished, his voice low but firm. "This isn't family. This is exploitation. They're using your love to trap you." "But they say they have rights," I said, echoing Victor's threat. "They've been here 3 years. They say they can take the house if I don't comply." Tom's eyes narrowed. "They're bluffing. I've seen this before, people preying on family, thinking they can scare them with legal nonsense. No court would give them your house when you've been bankrolling them. But you need a lawyer to shut this down." A lawyer. The idea scared me. Lawyers meant conflict, money, maybe losing Naomi and the kids. But as I looked at Tom, at the conviction in his eyes, I realized I was already losing everything. "What would you do, Tom?" I asked. "I'd kick them out," he said without hesitation. "But if you're not there yet, start with boundaries. Charge rent. Stop paying for their business. Remind them this is your house. And if they push back, you push harder. You're not helpless, Joseph. You own this place. You have a pension. You have rights. His words were a lifeline. For 3 years, I'd felt like I was drowning, but Tom was reminding me I could stand. Can you help me find a lawyer? I asked. He grinned. I know just the guy. The next day, I drove to town, my heart racing as I parked outside the office of Robert Klein, a lawyer Tom recommended. Robert was in his 50s, with a calm demeanor and a desk piled with legal files. Mr. Everett, tell me what's happening, he said, his pen ready. I spilled the story, the agreement, the threats, the financial drain, the garage takeover. Robert listened, his expression shifting from curiosity to anger. When I finished, he leaned back. Joseph, this is elder abuse, financial and emotional. Their tenant rights claim is nonsense. You're the homeowner, and you've been subsidizing their business. No court would side with them. Relief hit me, but fear lingered. What can I do? I asked. Several things, Robert said. First, we issue a formal notice terminating any informal housing agreement. You set new terms, they pay rent, cover half the expenses, or leave in 30 days. Second, we document the financial abuse, every grocery bill, every business expense you've paid. If they resist, we can pursue charges for exploitation. And third, we ensure no unauthorized guests stay without your consent. Victor's brother is coming next week, I said, remembering the latest imposition. They didn't ask. They just told me he's staying in my room. Robert's jaw tightened. That's another violation. We'll include a clause about unauthorized guests. Cost for the consultation and notices is $250. If it goes to court, we can arrange a payment plan. $250. Less than I'd spent on their business supplies in a month. I handed over the money, feeling a spark of hope. Draft the notices, I said. I want them today. That evening, I returned home with 3 legal letters, addressed to Naomi, Victor, and Victor's brother, Paul. The house was quiet, Naomi was in the garage, Victor was out, and the kids were at a friend's. I sat at the dining room table, the notices before me, and waited. Victor came home first, his arms full of takeout bags. Joseph, can you clear the table for dinner? He called, not looking up. No, I said, my voice steady. We need to talk. Sit down. He froze, his eyes narrowing as he saw the papers. What's this? Naomi emerged from the garage, her face tense. Dad, what's going on? Victor texted, you're acting strange. Sit, I said, pointing to the chairs. They sat, exchanging wary glances. I slid the letters across the table. These are legal notices from my lawyer. They outline the new terms for living here. Read them now or later, but they're effective immediately. Naomi grabbed her letter, her eyes racing over it. $700 a month in rent? Half the utilities? Dad, this is crazy. We can't afford this. Then find a place you can afford, I said, unyielding. This is my house. I've been paying for everything, groceries, utilities, your business, while you profit. That ends now. Victor's face reddened. Joseph, you're out of line. We're your family. We've turned this house into a business hub. You can't kick us out. I'm not kicking you out, I said. I'm giving you 30 days to decide, pay rent and contribute, or leave. And Paul has 48 hours to cancel his visit. He's not staying without my permission. Naomi's mouth opened. You're telling Victor's brother he can't visit? Dad, he's family. He's your family, not mine, I said. And this is my house. No one stays without my consent. Victor slammed his hand on the table. This is betrayal. After everything we've done, you go to a lawyer? We've been keeping this house alive, giving you purpose. You've been living here rent-free, using my money, my space, I countered. You gave me a work schedule, threatened to take my house. That's not family. That's exploitation. Naomi's eyes welled up, but I knew her tears. Dad, how can you do this to us? To Sophie and Noah? You're their grandpa. The kids are always welcome, I said. But not as leverage to control me. You have 30 days. The next month was a war. Naomi and Victor tried everything: denial, guilt, anger, fake kindness. They'd leave the garage a mess, claiming they were too busy. They'd remind me I'd be lonely without them. Sophie and Noah asked why Grandpa was mad. I explained simply, Grandpa needs to take care of himself to be the best grandpa for you. Paul's visit was cancelled, but not without drama. Victor called his brother, claiming I'd banned him. Paul sent me a nasty text, calling me selfish. I didn't reply. Robert had advised keeping all communication written, and I followed his advice. By the end of the 30 days, Naomi and Victor found a small apartment across town. They moved out on the last day, their faces sullen. As they packed, Naomi turned to me. I hope you're happy, Dad. You're choosing to be alone. I'm choosing to be myself, I said. I'll always love you and the kids. But love doesn't mean letting you use me. 3 months later, I woke to the quiet of my home. I made coffee in my kitchen, sat in my living room, and looked at my workshop, now cleared of their clutter. I'd started restoring clocks again, the tick-tock of gears grounding me. My pension, no longer drained, covered my needs with enough for small joys: a new history book, a coffee with Tom, a woodworking class. Sophie and Noah visited every other weekend, and our time was different. Without constant caregiving, I could be their grandpa, teaching them about clocks, playing chess, laughing over ice cream. They'd ask about their parents, and I'd answer kindly. Your mom and dad are figuring things out, like I am. But I'm here for you. Robert called to confirm Naomi and Victor had no claim to my house. You did it, Joseph, he said. You took back your life. As I sat in my workshop, fixing a clock's delicate gears, I realized he was right. This was my home, my life, my story. And for the first time in years, I was writing it myself. Moral: true family respects your dignity and contributions, never exploiting your love for personal gain. Standing up for your rights, even against those closest to you, is a courageous step toward reclaiming your life and self-worth. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. Watch the full video for more details.